What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to do with you guys. This is a production Mick Strider SMF. This is the first Strider I've ever had on the channel. I was fortunate to meet Mr. at Herms Things on Instagram, and he sent me a whole bunch of wonderful knives, including this beautiful production Strider SMF. So give this man a follow. It's because of people like him that I'm able to bring you guys daily content. It's also because of people who are generous enough to join my Patreon. So if you'd like to be a part of my Patreon, help support this channel, get your hands on some cool stickers, and gain access to my once-a-week Patreon exclusive content, there's a link down in the description, as well as a link for my new merch store through Redbubble. So if you'd like to get your hands on some cool Metal Complex merch, follow that link and pick out what you want. Anyways, this is a big deal for me because as long as I've been involved in the knife world, right, I've known, I found out about Strider knives about the same time that I found out about Hinderer knives, and I was interested in, knives a long time before that, but only recently did the first time I ever handled a Strider was here just recently. So I've taken a bit of extra time, gathered my thoughts, and I think that I have what I want to say here. There are custom Strider knives. This is a production knife. Now, real quick, give you a brief sort of history of what happened with Strider knives here lately. He closed the doors to the production facility that it was allowing him to put out, Strider SNGs, PTs, and SMFs in larger quantities. He still does full customs and he still does production runs, but they are in substantially more limited supply. It's my understanding that as soon as these types of production Striders pop up on sites like Monkey Edge and others, they're gone almost immediately. So these are very difficult to get a hold of. I want everybody to keep that in mind while I'm doing this. I also just happen to have two other knives that will serve as excellent size comparisons for people wanting to know how much bigger is the Strider SMF than the SNG. For those of you familiar with Rick Hinderer knives, the Strider SMF is essentially the XM24 of the Strider line, and then he has his XM18 size knife is the Strider SNG. This is a ProTech Strider collab, but it is actually exactly the same size as a standard Strider SNG or a real Strider SNG. And then because of Justin the Hunter, I actually have the little one too. This is a ProTech Strider that's the size of the Strider PT. So there you go, there's the different sizes. Of course, this guy is substantially thicker, and Mick Strider offers his production knives in a wide range of thicknesses, but I just thought I'd go ahead and do that since I have those knives here. Let's do some size comparisons with some of my other standards. The Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1 is coming in at 8.6 inches overall, so as you can see there, this is a big knife. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? Spyderco PM2 is coming in at 8.6 inches overall. So you can see they're still substantially bigger. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue's coming in at 8 inches overall. And last but not least, the Spyderco Para 3. Spyderco Para 3 is coming in at 7.25 inches overall. I realized I didn't actually measure it. Let's go ahead and measure it. So overall length of the SMF is coming in at like 9 inches on the dot. Yep, that's a big old knife. How about tip to scale? You're looking at 4 inches of blade, but because of this enormous forward choil and sharpening choil, the cutting edge is actually coming in under 3.25. Some people view that as a disadvantage or an eyesore. I'm actually very much in favor of it. A lot of people call the Spyderco Shaman the Strider Co. Let me tell you why. Can you see it? It's very similar to a Strider SNG or SMF, and I came to love the Spyderco Shaman. So looking at the position of the forward choil, I realized I probably would really like a Strider knife. I don't care so much that I have less usable cutting edge in terms of the overall length of the knife. That's not something that bothers me. I very much like to know that I have a blank not a blank canvas, but a very open canvas in terms of different places that I can put my hand, so the Strider does appeal to me. Now, it's my understanding that they have fatty variants of these and they have standard variances. I'm going to guess it's somewhere around the vicinity of what Rick Hinderer likes to do. The blade thickness on this guy is going to be coming in at probably 185 to 190 thousandths, which is the same thing as Rick Hinderer's XM18 or Fatty, I'm sorry, XM24 or Fatty 18 variants. Yeah, there you go, 180 thousandths, so it's at least 180 thousandths. This is a thick knife, definitely. But I know that Strider also does some 165 or 160,000 stock thick blades, and he does some 145,000 stock thick blades, and possibly even thinner than that. So these are very difficult to get, but just know that if you are going to take the time to hunt one down, there are variants out there that have, varying, thicknesses of blades. Not going to get into the custom stuff. I believe that these are fairly, the blade shape here is fairly standard. I know that there is, of course, a Tanto and perhaps at least one other blade shape. But Strider knives are very mysterious to me because it's not as easy for me to track, the different, the changes by generation and the changes or what is available in certain blade shapes, because the timeline is different, and it's difficult because they've never been incredibly widely available. But I can tell you guys what I do know. Anyways, let's talk here about the carry profile on this guy. Remember, this is the biggest guy. There is a smaller version. So up against thickness, up against like the Para 3, you can see there it is substantially thicker there. And up against the Spyderco PM2, even though these are aftermarket scales, yeah, same thing. Now this one actually is tall. It's pretty traditional on this channel that I'm like, up against two knives that, nobody ever complains about, But you can see there that this guy does take up a lot of room in the pocket. This is a big, thick knife. It is not going to be easy for everybody to carry. However, if you are used to carrying big, thick knives, as big, thick knives go, this isn't the worst that I've ever seen. By that I mean, like if you've ever tried to carry a Medford, I love Medford knives, but they're not the most pocket friendly, or some of the larger models are not the most pocket friendly. Let's go ahead and weigh this. What are we looking at for materials here? You're looking at 185-ish thousandths of 20 CV blade, an aluminum front scale, and a titanium rear scale. Now these do also come in G10, so here's the aluminum variant. Not bad. 6.28 ounces, that's what my full-tie XM18 3.5 inch weighs, right? Now, this is gonna be way too heavy for most people. This doesn't bother me. The pants that I wear on a day-to-day basis are either regular khakis, jeans, or work pants. So this is just fine with me. Obviously, if you're wearing athletic shorts, if you're wearing thin pant material, or you're wearing, sometimes like fitted dress pants, if you wear this is not an office carry knife. So dress pants, no. This is pretty much going to be exclusive to people who, you can carry what you want. Don't let me tell you what you can and can't carry. But this is going to be like for people who are carrying or are used to wearing like regular jeans or more heavy duty pant material. It's not going to be an office carry knife, at least in my opinion. Like I said, materials we're looking at here are your titanium, your aluminum, and your 20 CV blade. I feel like I'm leaving something out here. Oh, action. So this is running on phosphor bronze, and it is one of the smoothest experiences that I have ever had with phosphor bronze. A lot of people look at this, and then they look at like the XM18, which is mine out here. Where is it? Yeah, I'll pull it out of here. They look at the XM18 and they're like, well, the XM8, Hinderer knives have, upgraded, heavy, right? Upgraded to a steel lock bar insert, and they have bearings, and then, blah, blah, blah. Those are not necessary upgrades. There's plenty of argument for not having a steel lock bar insert. Yes, it is convenient to simply switch that thing out if it ever wears all the way over. However, steel on steel contact is notoriously more slippy than a carbidized titanium lock face on a steel tang. Those stick a little bit better, they're harder to disengage. You do sometimes get a little bit of extra lock stick with it, which actually is the case here right now with this, but it's usually not a big deal, and most people will tell you that it's actually safer in terms of a titanium frame lock. You're less likely for the knife to it's less likely that the knife will disengage. On top of that, not every knife needs bearings. In fact, on a hard use themed knife, a knife that is intended for hard use, phosphor bronze is undoubtedly a better choice because it's way less likely debris will get in there and gunk things up, So anyways, the phosphor bronze on this knife, they are as smooth as I have ever felt. It's almost completely drop shut with phosphor bronze. I mean, it is unbelievably smooth, and I really, really like that. So the action is just perfect. Let's take a look at the tumbling on this blade. This is my favorite type of tumbling. I actually like this. Let me get the XM back out. Rick Kinder used to have a different type of tumbling that was more similar to this, and he changed his up, and it's a more scratchy reflective tumbling. But there is a difference, right? You can see like this is more of like a scratchy, like a light scratch, but it's also reflective. This is more of like more granular. And I know that's a minor detail, but Rick Kinder used to do his tumbling more like this, and I like this better. This looks nicer. This is okay. This looks nicer. That is a beautiful tumbling finish that's on that Strider. I very much like that a lot. Moving on here, I want to talk about how perfect I think this blade is. When I did my series called Quest for the Perfect Budget Knife, I talked a lot about how I thought the Spyderco Shaman had one of the best blade shapes that's out there. Why? Because regardless of the starting thickness, look how similar these are. They're very tall, fairly long. They have a flat that runs about 60% the length and then carries the swedge down to the tip, making the tip, pretty darn robust on both of these guys, right? It's thrown off a little bit right here because there's a swedge, but both tips are nice and robust, yet they're going to be good at puncture tasks. This is just up here for comparison to explain to you guys why I think this. The thumb hole is easily accessible. It's out of the cutting path. Not that even if it was in the cutting path, it wouldn't make a difference. But you get a fantastic combination of strength and cutting performance considering how thick the blade is. And then you still get a tip that is going to be plenty good at your puncture style task. Now, I'm not saying that this thing is, that you can shave toilet paper with it, but it gets impressively thin behind the edge because of how high the grind, how tall this area is before it starts to drop to the cutting edge. That's about as perfect of a blade shape as I could ever imagine. I love the blade shape on this. I'm very, very happy with it. You can see there is a generously sized forward choil right here. It also is something that ensures, even if your hand slips up here, you still have a little area where it's like, whoops, oh, it's okay. I'm saved by that sharpening choil. Now, I understand a lot of people aren't going to like that because of how much it takes away from the cutting edge. For me, I like this. I've got a hand position here, 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 here. There's so much room on the handle, right? And I feel 100% safe using this knife. If I was going to really bear down on a knife and really use it hard, these Strider knives, man, they are just, it's the same thing with the S&G. Even the little PT, I can get my hands all the way up there, right? This little tiny knife, I can get my hand all the way around it. Easily with the SNG. Again, this is a ProTech, but same idea, right? I just like that. The ergonomic lines on this thing, they don't necessarily produce the most aesthetically appealing look. I like this now, but the first time I saw it, I was like, ugh, what is that? Weird triangle pyramid knife with a, some sort of bird beak thing. Same sort of idea when I saw the PM2 for the first time. I was like, ugh, dead bird. But no, I love this now. All the edges have been nicely knocked down. There's nothing sharp except for the cutting edge. So all of this is just, it's a joy to interact with. Whether you're doing the standard thumb flick, which is very easy to do, or you're doing a reverse flick. Those of you who like to use this finger, let me try it. Can I do it? Yeah, I can totally do it. I don't think it matters which finger you use. Let's try this one. My finger got in the way. Hold on. I'm gonna do something I've never tried. Yeah, this is so easy to do. That is just perfectly set up, right? Mick Strider did some designs for the military, and I think, it's clear that he's very much thinking about where your hand goes on a knife while you're using it and how important it is that you're able to switch up your positions. This knife also has one of my favorite features, which is external stop pins. Those pins brace on the frame, and it helps mitigate pressure away from the pivot under, really, really heavy pressure cuts. This knife does have jimping that extends back here onto the spine, but because there's no flipper tab, it means that you're not slamming your finger into this. So that's just an area where you can control. Like if you're going to hold back here, you've got jimping right here. If you're going to hold up here, you've got jimping all the way up there. I mean, it's just, this is set up exactly the way that I like it. Perfect. This is one of those Strider specific pivots where you need like a specific spanner tool, and then this is actually I don't think it's Torx. Maybe it is Torx, but it's a large Torx head. This is more proprietary than the Ender XM18, right? That takes a very specific spanner head, and I would imagine you can still find it, but take a look at what I mean here. This is a much more common size spanner bit head, and then this one's kind of, weird, but I'm sure you can still go down to your local hardware store and find something that will work for that. But if you want to take it apart, you're absolutely going to need something like that. What's cool about it is it has that see-through thing, where you can see all the way through it. It's kind of neat, It's definitely held into place hard. They definitely use Loctite on it, so that is the way that it is. I love the texturing on this. It is heavy. It is aggressive. You are going to hang on to this knife. This knife is not going anywhere. Just in terms of the lines, this could be smooth. You're not going to lose it. It's also slightly contoured, which makes for a very pleasant feeling in the hand. Very solid, very filling, right? Everything's nicely knocked down. No hot spots anywhere around here. This is odd to me. This is odd that this is not open and has either a backspacer or has standoffs, but this is how he does it. Right now, there's different variants out there. I do not know, exactly what it is that they call that, but you're going to find that there's a lot of different like titles and explanations for how they do the handle shapes. But this is just how he does that. Now, in terms of how well it's fitted together, it's perfect. In fact, fit and finish all the way around on this guy is hyper impressive. I had heard a lot of rumors, or not rumors, but a lot of people, talk about the lack of quality in terms of the end result in a Strider knife. People complaining about fit and finish. If that was the case in the past, I'm not seeing it here with this knife. This thing is like flawlessly put together. So either he's upped his game, or maybe this is just a very rare example of one, but this thing is perfect. This is as high, in terms of like manufacturing quality, this is right up there with everything else that I've ever seen. In fact, I've done a video on that here recently. I don't know if you guys have seen it all. These are all pre-recorded, but yeah, very impressed with the fit and finish on this guy. You can see some extra jimping back here. Centering on this guy is nice and perfect. That's wonderful. Lock up, you can see they're coming in early at about 20%. Absolutely dead solid. Dead solid, which is always impressive, especially when you're getting action like this on phosphor bronze. Wonderful. Pocket clip is, well, let's talk about the hardware. Gigantic. It's got to be at least T10 sized hardware. Not going to put a tool in here because this isn't mine and I don't want to scratch it. Huge hardware. We have a Rick Hinder style lock bar stabilizer and over travel stop. No steel lock bar insert. Talked about that. Don't need it. That's all great. The pocket clip is a little bit of a hotspot. A little bit. It's the same type of pocket clip we're seeing on the ProTech Strider collab. And on that one, it's kind of a little bit of the same thing. Not that big of a deal. I love how they attach them. You can see there, it's got that little attachment thing that goes inside the frame, and then you've got one screw. No play whatsoever. Here's the biggest problem. Look how much the knife sticks out of your pocket while you're carrying it, right? Crazy, right? Same thing here. Now, on these standard production ProTech ones, they've got that figured out. Deep carry pocket clips. That's nice. On these, yeah, a lot of knife sticks out of your pocket. You're going to get some snail trails, and it's going to be a little bit awkward. It's going to feel... This back end of this knife is super bulky. That will kill it for a lot of people. I've just gotten around it with this guy because I love carrying that one. I love it. But man, that big, it's got this big old butt hanging out the back of your pocket, and I'm constantly aware of it, and you will be too, carrying something like this. Just want to emphasize that. That's the biggest downside. Truthfully, I mean, in terms of all this, like the only things I'm really going to complain about, or some people are going to complain about, the overall weight, definitely big and heavy. The cutting edge to handle ratio, some people are not going to like that. There's no steel lock bar insert, but it doesn't necessarily need it, right? Pocket clip is a little tiny bit of a hot spot, and the carry position is shallow, and there's an enormous amount of it sticking out of the back. This area back here is a little bit unsightly in my opinion, but that's his design. I can't super argue with it. The biggest problem with these knives is availability. Now, I understand like he can only do what he can do, but the thing that's holding me back from it, listen, if you can find one, right? The price that he has on these, I don't think is crazy. Now, I could be wrong about this. I tried to find, gather as much information about base pricing as I possibly could. I believe SNGs go for the absolute, least that you're going to find them is about $450. And I think these guys go for about $550. I could be wrong about that. It's really hard to pin it down because they don't last very long, right? And I believe he's changed his pricing. So I found a lot of information that was very old. And so I had to come to a roundabout conclusion because they don't always offer the same thing. Every time he does a run, there's like different, finishes, different handle materials, whether or not he's got flaming on the back, whether or not he's got texturing. The steel, we didn't even talk about this. They're not all 20 CV. He uses a lot of 3V. He uses S30V. He uses CPM 154. He uses a ton of different stuff, like such a wide range of different steels. So it's really, really hard to get put a finger on pricing. It is somewhere right around the same vicinity of a Hinder XM18, 3.5 inch up to the 24. The PTs, I don't know. That's a different territory. I don't know much about that, but it is difficult. Believe me, this isn't for lack of trying. It is difficult to pin down pricing on these things. The biggest problem is availability. If you can find one of these for a price in there, yeah, I think they're worth it. But again, you're going to have to be one of those people who's like, ready to graduate into this pricing or this price caliber of knife or this caliber of knife in general. And then you have to actually find it. If you do find it and you pay the money for it, you're going to be happy with what you get for the money. If you're somebody who's never purchased a knife over $100 or $200, this may not be for you just because it's so expensive. It may not, it's like I always say, there's no reason that you absolutely have to graduate into this caliber of knives. But for those people who are ready to graduate into this area or already exist, their buying habits are already in this parameter. This is kind of where I'm comfortable buying knives. Then yes, the quality, the final product is very much the same, if not better than a lot of knives that are in the same price range. But finding one is a huge problem. They're gone like immediately. So for that reason alone, this isn't a knife that I can recommend to everybody. And it's also very expensive, and it has some quirky things that not everybody's going to like. But let me tell you what I think. Despite that, this knife is actually going to go in my most favorite knives of all time playlist, which is different from my most recommended knife. Like, that playlist is reserved for knives that I pick up, and I'm like, there's things that not everybody likes about this, but God, I like this. Ergonomics alone on this thing just knock it out of the park for me. But on top of that, it is so easy to manipulate. It is so friendly with this has to be, honestly, I think the Strider SMF is right up there. Like, I've always said that the Spyderco Manix, the Spyderco Shaman is my favorite ergonomic experience ever. The Strider is officially tied with it. The real Strider, because of the contouring, is officially tied with the Spyderco Shaman just because of the lines. I just love it, and that just makes me happy. That, in combination with the fit and finish, the materials used, I'm very, very happy with this. So, it's going to go in my favorite knives of all time playlist. Not going to go in most recommended because you really have to specifically want this and be able to find it. But yeah. Anyways, at Herms Things, thank you so much for letting me take a look at this. This was an absolute joy, and I can finally check this one off my list. Anyways, guys, that's going to be pretty much it today. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.